Over the next several weeks, some Cape Codders may stumble upon strong-smelling ketchup packet-sized sachets while walking in their communities. These objects contain a vaccine for racoon-variant rabies and are being distributed as part of the state's oral rabies vaccination bait distribution program. Locally, the program is spearheaded by the Cape Cod and Southeast Massachusetts Rabies Task Force with support from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services. Distribution in portions of Barnstable and Plymouth Counties began on May 5th and is scheduled to conclude around May 14th. capecodnews.org spoke with Task Force co-chair and New England Wildlife Center's executive director Zach Mertz to learn more about the program.
This week marks the annual spring bait drop, as we call it. And essentially what's happening is we're prophylactically distributing rabies vaccines. They're oral vaccines. They're in little bait packets covered in fish meal. And the idea is that wildlife that are susceptible to rabies, we call them rabies vector species, but think like your foxes, your raccoons are a big one. Of the 5 or 6 species that tend to get rabies more, they will go through their lives being wild animals, being really active this time of year, find those baits, find them attractive, eat them, and they will be inoculated against the rabies virus. And that does a couple things. It not only keeps those individual wildlife animals safe, but it also prevents the spread of this disease to the point where it could impact, pets or people, or even spread within the wildlife populations in those counties.
The ORV bait distribution program includes 2 phases. The first took place between May 5th and 8th when town and federal employees distributed bait packets on foot and by vehicle. The second phase starts May 12th and continues for approximately 3 days, weather permitting. During this time, a USDA-owned helicopter will conduct low-altitude aerial distribution.
If you were to see one in your local area, if it's in the street or something, you can kind of kick it over to the side. They are non-toxic to pets, and they also have a contact number right on the sash itself. And so if you have questions, you can call Barnstable County. They have a public health line set up. They can help you answer questions, but it's also important that you report the baits that you find, because every bait that you find that isn't in a natural area is one bait that an animal doesn't get to eat.
This year, the ORV bait distribution program only includes 4 Cape Cod towns: Bourne, Sandwich, Falmouth, and Barnstable. The reason? Officials deem distribution further down the Cape unnecessary.
Because of the extremely low incidence of raccoon-variant rabies on the Cape, because this program has been so successful, we've actually been able to push virus exposure pretty much off the peninsula itself. That being said, because Barnstable has Hyannis in it, is a big population center, and then some of the bordering towns are sort of, think of it like playing defense a little bit, like Falmouth, Bourne. We still distribute there as a way of stopping, an animal that maybe came into contact with the virus from encroaching over the canal. But over its history has been hugely successful. And so the plan is to continue pushing out off the Cape and sort of build up that defensive boundary incrementally further out.
While rabies cases have dwindled on Cape Cod in recent years, Mertz emphasizes the importance of keeping a safe distance from wildlife regardless of the situation.
One of the most critical things you can do to help prevent the spread of rabies is not only keep a safe distance from rabies vector species, but also never relocate wildlife. It's illegal to do so, but it's also, unfortunately, a really good way to move a sick animal to a new environment where it has the potential to infect other wildlife. The thing with rabies is it can present a whole bunch of different ways, and people see it and they instantly think of the cartoon with the foaming at the mouth. And it can happen, but it's certainly not the most common presentation we see. Oftentimes, the ones that are symptomatic are really just lethargic. They're not, maybe able to walk terribly well. They look just a little bit out of it. There's no real obvious way to look at an animal and say it has rabies. And the other thing is, in wildlife, there's no real known incubation time. And so it's possible for an animal to carry this disease without ever showing symptoms. And so, as a wildlife hospital and on the task force, we're always cautioning folks that, the best way to enjoy wildlife is from a distance.
According to Mertz, rabies is most often transmitted through saliva to blood contact, and the virus is comparatively dangerous among people, pets, and wildlife.
Once it's contracted, it's essentially 100% fatal. And so It's not something you want to mess around with. The good news is you can get the rabies vaccine post-exposure if you think you've been exposed to an animal or bitten by an animal or scratched or come into contact with the saliva of an animal that is sick. You want to call, the Massachusetts Department of Health or County Health or your doctor. They can help you get the resources, but you have, a seven-ish day window. You can get these post-exposure vaccines, and it's 99.9% effective. Um, and so the moral of the story is if you have come into contact with an animal you are worried about or suspicious, seek advice early, seek advice often, because you have an amazing option right after the exposure. But if you wait several months, the effectiveness of the treatment could potentially go down. It doesn't mean you shouldn't seek help, but best advice is seek help as soon as you can.